Recording is on. Thank you. I'd like to start out with introductions. If you could give your name, where you're living, your day job, what you're teaching, so you function with future generations. And then I'd like to add something which would really help me and each other. What's one thing that really motivates you in your work? And for me, I'll just start. I'm Christy Han. My title is Academic Director for the graduate school, for the university right now. And something that really motivates me is seeing our students succeed. And sometimes it's tough, and sometimes it takes a lot of work to work individually with them, but when we see them succeed and we see them working in their communities, that's really rewarding. And so I am going to go from left to right on my screen. Henry, you're at the very top left of my screen, so if we could start with you, that would be great.
Okay, I'm Henry Mosley. I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. For many years, I've taught population, family planning, reproductive health. My background is medicine and epidemiology. And my work has always been in international health. I spent 14 years in Bangladesh, Kenya, and Indonesia. I'm teaching now, of course, in fact, I start in a couple of weeks in population dynamics in public health to the MPH class. And I teach it both online as well as face-to-face. And also Ben Lazar and I teach a leadership course, which we've been teaching for about 25 years at Hopkins, and about 24 countries around the world. And I'll be teaching the leadership course coming up in Future Generations. And I guess, Ben and I sort of have a philosophy. He may say the same thing, but he may have something else to say, that, if in a whole year's work, if we could really impact the life of one person and make a real change in their worldview, in their life, in their career goals, that would be enough satisfaction.
Thanks, Henry. That's great. I appreciate it. Dan Robison, you're next on my screen.
Okay. I'm Dan Robison. I live and work in the Bolivian Amazon. I'm in Jujunavaque. I'm in my home. I've been working with the practicum with this cohort, and also just finished up Sustainable Livelihoods course with this cohort, and now this final term we're combining the previous course that we had called Synthesis and Integration with the last course in the practicum, and this is the first time we're going to be doing it remotely, because there's not really time to do the synthesis and integration on the residential. So we're going to be experimenting with doing some individual work, some peer-to-peer, some group work, some peer-to-peer advice on their practicum, and then more of a plenary session towards the end, probably on Zoom. And then we'll try, since not all students will make it to the residential, we'll try having a Zoom session with the non-residential and then those that didn't make it. So we're going to be experimenting with a lot of components, and we're also introduced e-portfolios with this cohort, which haven't completely gotten off the ground. So there's a lot to be done in this final term. It's me. Well, I look out my window and I can see the peak of the National Park, I live about 1 kilometer from a biosphere reserve, which is adjacent to the most biodiverse national park in the world. And on the other side of it, it's adjacent to 2 national parks in Peru. So it's what I consider to be the greatest wilderness in the world. So it motivates me to live by it, live beside it, and try to generate sustainable livelihoods around this greatest wilderness.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Thanks. Scott, you're next on my screen.
Thanks, Christy. Can you hear me okay?
Great. I can hear you.
Okay, super. So I'm connecting with you all from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I've been for the past months. I wear a couple of hats in addition to a part-time teaching role at Future Generations. I have been doing some work here at the University of North Carolina, and am also consulting with a few additional clients, mainly around social innovation, design thinking, systems thinking. The course I taught this past term, in term 3, was innovation and entrepreneurship. I would say more of a practitioner's course, based on my experience in 10 years in Hong Kong, leading a impact investment fund, investing into social enterprises. What gives me greatest passion is seeing other people who have passion about the work they're doing find ways to do that more efficiently and effectively. So giving them really just around execution, giving them the ability to create greater impact with whatever it is that animates them.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Sonny, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Joseph Sani. Can you hear me?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yes, so I'm calling from Washington, D.C., and then I work as a technical advisor at FHI 360, which is an international NGO. And then I work precisely in the Department of Civil Society and Peace Building. So, and that's my background. And I cover Africa, where we have a couple of projects: Mali, the DRC Congo, Nigeria, and then Rwanda, etc. And also recently we have started a project in Nepal. I'm also supporting that project technically, and in Tunisia as well. Basically, it's about my work. The tools I'm using in those projects are around collaborative work at community level, so collaborative processes. One of them is called scale, but not the scale we are using with Future, but basically it's around collective impact and building social capital in conflict zones. One of the things that motivate me in my work, I mean, two things. As far as my work with Future University is concerned, where I will be teaching natural resources and conflict, I think I fell in love with the profile of the students in my class. So these are the kind of change makers that we really want to empower. And really, I hope that the class will be experience sharing and will add value in their life, in their work, and in their community. I mean, that's my goal. I hope so. After seeing what happened in Rwanda when I was teaching the class, I think that was really motivating. So my work here with FHI 360 is really to see how with ideas are so powerful, and to see those ideas implemented and changing people's lives is quite inspiring. And I think, that keeps me going every day, to know that ideas can change the world.
Wow. Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate that. Freyo, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Freyo Kofelo, connecting with you from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, East Africa. I'm the Regional Academic Director for Future Generations University, mainly tasked with the East Africa region, although we have students from other parts of Africa, current class. I also assist, co-teach courses in the university. Right now, after submitting the final grades of students that I co-taught on participatory monitoring and evaluation, I'm very busy in recruitment and resource mobilization for the next class and the short-term trainings. My background is mainly in capacity building and then community development work in various parts of Africa. And I'm a student of psychology. Thanks.
What motivates you, Freya?
What motivates me is basically pretty much like you say, Christy, and also the fact that the program gives me the opportunity to see and students with experience coming, and also the fact that the curriculum is student-led, which means that we take students' views and opinions and experience seriously, is a huge motivator for me. It also helps me to see if my experience and personal philosophy basically promotes social change in the community.
Thank you, Freya. I appreciate that. Terry, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Terry. I'm sitting here in Mazomanie, Wisconsin, outside of Madison. I'm a scientist in the Forest and Wildlife Ecology Department at the University of Wisconsin. And I'm teaching the conservation policy course coming up. And what motivates me working with Future Generations is getting to work with students who are actually in the field and applying what you're teaching them, right? And the back and forth and learning, I think, is when I get called up and asked if I want to teach the course, that's usually what motivates me the most, is thinking about those applied aspects. So,
Thanks, Terry.
Yep.
Thank you. Ben.
Hello, everyone. Just call me Ben. I'm Ben Lozare. I've been with Johns Hopkins for 28 years now, where I serve as Director for Training and Capacity Building at the Center for Communication Programs. I also teach at the Department of Health, Behavior, and Society, and work very closely with Henry Mosley in teaching the leadership course, which is part of our task with the Future Generations. We've been teaching that course for, I guess, more than a decade now. What motivates me is the learning process. I guess we're all students and we're all teachers, and it's really very nice to learn and teach at the same time, probably learn more than my students.
So true. Thank you, Ben. Luke, you're next.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Luke Taylor-Ide. I'm the Regional Academic Director for Future Generations for the Appalachian region and cohort. I just got teaching, co-teaching the Going to Scale course with my father, Daniel Taylor, last term, as well as the teaching in term 1, the Introduction to Social Change course. And just was a little late to this call because I'm also a faculty member on our certificate on the 7 tasks to sustainable social change, which we're also running concurrently with the master's program. And I guess what motivates me is obviously having been around Future Generations for a very, very long time, and having had the opportunity to practice seed scale and be involved with a number of the different initiatives, is really feeling like a lot of the kind of component parts are coming together right now. And in Future Generations, it's a really exciting time to be both learning by doing from the standpoint of thinking about how we can really use technology to effectively teach people who are doing this work, as Terry said, really kind of people who are actually learning by doing, and how do we measure and monitor that. And it's just been really exciting over the past couple of years to be part of that.
Thank you, Luke. Eric? Jess, you need to unmute so Eric can talk.
I'm a consultant. I don't teach at Future Generations University. I'm full-time faculty at James Madison University. Worked at Virginia Tech in English and engineering for about 20
I really can't hear it.
Can you get closer, Eric?
I'm a consultant. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a consultant to Future Generations. I've been for a few years, working mostly with assessment and instructional design, instructional methodology as well. I'm full-time at James Madison University right now. I taught at Virginia Tech for about 20 years in engineering and in English. And this year I'll be working a lot with Dan Wessner on assessment, HLC assessment.
Great. Thank you. Jesse.
How come Dad got away with not having to say what inspired him? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm Jesse Pappas. I've been a faculty member with Future Generations for 3 years now. I'm a psychologist by training. I do a lot of data-driven stuff at Future Generations. I'm the assessment director. I was leading up the HLC effort that we did in 2016. I'm also going to be working with the group to lead a portfolio-based assessment program and the development of prior learning assessment and some other interesting initiatives that'll be coming up here with the next 2 classes. What inspires me, I guess as a psychologist, really what inspires me are my colleagues more than anything. The relationships I have with all of you and also with the students. But just getting to work with such a really interesting and really diverse group of people is just a huge benefit to being a member of Future Generations team.
Thanks, Jesse. I can relate to that. Daniel, you're next on my screen.
Well, it's always good to see all my friends on these sorts of video connections, not quite as good as being together. But what motivates me, especially right now, and this is what I want to emphasize, is that we seem to be progressing towards a lower financial cost mode of higher education. And I think that the cost dynamic in higher education is one of the most critical issues to address, because while higher education is expensive, it is therefore exclusive. And we are creating in this world a world of division of the haves and the have-nots. And education is the means to bridge that, it seems to me. And Future Generations has been making significant steps this last year to evolve a less costly delivery and learning mode. And in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be pressing this one. Because if we can lower the cost, the true cost of a year of learning to something in the order of $5,000 a year, then suddenly the opportunity opens dramatically. So I want to thank each of you as fellow colleagues on the faculty for helping with this process. Because I think in the course of it, if we can evolve a mode of high quality learning for students, while also lowering the cost of the delivery process, we're developing something that other universities can use. And it is this experiment of learning plus research that we're going to be doing that is my motivating factor for the present moment. And so I thank you for joining in this process.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Nawang?
Good morning, everyone. I am from Nepal, Kathmandu, and the Himalaya region, academic director. And also I am doing a consultant for the Future Generations India. My background is especially in civil engineer, and then I have moved to community development specialist. I have been working Future Generations since 2001. And now after 13 years, I can see the face of my 2 professors, because I am first batch of Future Generation Master Program. So Henry Muslin and Ben, they are my first professor of the 2004. So very nice to see you today after 13 years. So that's, I think,
Are you cutting out a bit, Nawang? Okay. Sorry, Nawang, you're cutting out. We'll go ahead and move on. Jody? I don't know. Jody, can you hear me?
Yeah, I had to find my unmute button.
Okay.
I am. Go ahead.
You want to introduce yourself?
I'm just here to take your minutes for the day, and I am the registrar and financial aid.
Okay, thanks, Jody. John, thanks for coming on. You're next.
Hey, good morning. I'm John Zadra. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and you have caught me out on my walk with Hobbs here. So I'm a data scientist with a small kind of think tank called the Sorensen Impact Center, and also a adjunct faculty with the psychology department at the University of Utah. I just finished my first term teaching with Future Generations. I taught the introductory statistics class. And I think probably what got me the most motivated was early on reaching out to the students about what sort of things they were interested in, what sort of problems they wanted to solve, and what information they wanted to know but didn't have. I was looking for things that we could help deal with statistics. And I was really amazed by the variety and importance of all of the sort of passionate projects that they came back with. And so it was a lot of fun throughout the term getting to work with them to think about how to collect some data that would be useful or find useful data and then analyze and answer some questions about it. And several of them did some really interesting projects and actually found some surprising things that they wouldn't have expected. So that's always kind of the fun part about statistics for me.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. Okay, finally, Wilson in the Philippines or in Myanmar, maybe still. If you try it to see if you can speak. You said your connection wasn't very good. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hello.
There you go.
Yeah. Hello.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we got a hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm.
Okay.
Hello. Can I continue?
Yeah, continue. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. So I just came back from Myanmar after like more than a month there of my mission as the country program coordinator for the International Institute of Rural Reconstruction in Myanmar. And my background really is on disaster risk reduction, but in school I finished biology and then my master's in natural resources. Past thinking a lot around disaster risk reduction and building resilience in agriculture. And what I'm quite excited with this role in Future Generation, because I did the open learning approach, like a distance education. So, but this time it's a little bit high tech now with all this Moodle and all this face-to-face interaction.
Wilson, you're cutting out some, so we caught most
in my
of it.
time, we were just and then emailing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Wilson. I think we're able to hear most of that. What I'd like to do now, I really appreciate your introduction.
So maybe yes. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Wilson. I appreciate your introductions, and for me, it's inspiring because I just see what a tremendous privilege it is to work with each of you, because each of you is doing so much in your different roles. So thank you for that. I'd like to now ask the Term 3 faculty if you have best practices or some tips for those that are teaching in Term 4, and I'd like to give a chance also for Term faculty to ask them questions or to ask us questions. So just a few minutes of some open discussion of Term 3, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, some advice that you might have for the faculty with Term 4. And the Term 4 is starting July 3rd, so it's starting up just in a couple of weeks.
This is Daniel. Yeah, the one piece of advice that I'm seeing coming forward from now the years that I've been watching this process is that it's easy to give students too much work. I don't think we should lower the standard at all. In fact, the standard of the quality of the work that we expect needs to remain very high and very rigorous. but the students have a lot of additional work in their communities with their projects. So I think we need to be selective and strategic in the number of assignments we give and the amount of work that we load on them, while using this as a means of evidence gathering about whether they're learning and as proof of that learning. So that's the only experience that is coming more and more to me, because these students really have a huge amount that they have to do, but we can't lower the quality, but we could change perhaps the quantity.
Okay, thanks.
Well, one thing I did this term that I felt was fairly effective, was to I held regular office hours, especially every time there were assignments coming up. And by office hours, it was a live Zoom session. And while I seldom had large participation on those office hours, I did record myself walking through and explaining assignments, taking advantage of the screen share function. And I'm fairly certain I could tell quite often as I was getting final submissions of assignments, the students that had watched those videos and those that had not. It was just, they had a much clearer understanding of they used the sample layout and things like that I might have walked through just in the example that I gave. And so I would just put that out there, that certainly it's obviously very important to make yourself accessible to the students, but that if you are doing that, these video sessions, recording them, and really the power, I did an introductory session at the beginning of the class where I just walked through the entire class and said, here's the syllabus, these are the due dates, this is the assignment, recorded that, and it was available. And as I said, the students who watched it, I think, really benefited from it, and I wish that more had, in fact, watched it by the end of the term. The other really big point I would say was very prompt feedback, even if I wasn't actually going to get a grade to a student promptly. They're kind of out there and floundering, so they just, we don't know when we send them an email if they got it, and that's very frustrating. So I tried to make sure they always saw the power of a prompt response that said, you'll have a grade in 3 days, and then making sure I stuck with that feedback. So it would just be two general observations.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate that.
Can I go?
Yes.
Yes. I think from my experience, it's very, from designing the course, syllabus for the course, very tempting to be ambitious with the number of assignments and depth of assignments that you'd want to give. So it's good to be realistic. I don't know how you measure that because well, some of the students tend to be overwhelmed by the work that we give them, and then the main reason being because their hands are full with the projects they have, as Daniel mentioned. The other point that I would like to mention is about the platform, the Zoom platform, which provides excellent options if you take some time to go through it, and both for organizing your course and also communicating with your students, providing them with feedback, both visual, audio, and written feedback that I found very, very useful. The third point that I would like to raise is, if you are co-teaching a course, very important that you coordinate with your colleague. There will be assumptions. You may think that you understand what's going on, and you may not be together, teaching the course with your colleague. So it's very important to discuss thoroughly about the implications of assignments that you may give to the students, and also about organizing office hours and what have you. So if you are co-teaching your course, make sure that you regularly communicate and have actually an office hour for the two of you or three of you if you are more than two. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Freya. Others? Okay, yeah, questions or, yeah, Ben. Oh, okay. Oh, Ben, you need to, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have any tips or suggestions. I do have a few questions. I like the point that Dan made about the rising cost of graduate education. I think that's a very serious issue that we need to address. The other side of the coin, I've always been thinking about what can we do to increase the intellectual curiosity among students, in the sense that nowadays, given the availability of information in the web, in the internet, it's almost like you could learn so many things just by making a search. And most of the information is free. But how can we generate that thirst for knowledge among our students? Yeah. My second question is, and I don't know the answer, honestly. I've always asked my student this question now. What if we parachute into a country the best and the brightest graduates of Harvard University, Yale, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, or Stanford, or whatever, Oxford, into a country? What would happen? Would that make a difference? You have the 100 best and the brightest. Can they fix things? Can they bring about transformation? I wonder. I don't know. Or will they be stuck by the same bureaucracy or the same impediments to development? Is it a question of knowledge? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, but it's something that I've been thinking about. And I've sort of zeroed in on three variables that help or that hinder science: faith, the power structure, and culture. Those are the big ones. So I don't know the answer to those questions, but as someone who teaches, I've been thinking about this. How can we increase the intellectual curiosity of our students? And then, is it really a lack of knowledge that's hindering development? We parachute. Now, to me, the answer to that question, if we parachute 100, they're already there. Almost all the countries we work in have these 100 already, people who have studied overseas. But have they made a difference? I don't know the answer to that.
Ben, this is Daniel. I really love your questions. And I was, today I happened to be in Laramie, Wyoming, but 2 weeks ago I was in Delhi, India, sitting around a table with a couple of very senior members of Jawaharlal Nehru University. And they had been evaluating the impact of British colonialism on the development of India. And they said there was no correlation between the quality of the British civil servants. They were looking now at the 19th century, at 100 years of information they claimed, the 19th century, parachuting the best from Oxford and Cambridge and all the British schools.
That's right.
Imperial service. And they said there's no evidence that the higher quality from the university comes, but the biggest evidence was whether they learned the local language. And so it's a grounding. Now, whether, all of us, many of us here have listened to erudite Indians talk knowledgeably on topics that they claimed to know about, but knew very little about. And actually, that's not just Indian academics, it's academics all over the world. But I did find it very interesting that they said that the most important thing was the learning of the local language. And I do think there is a body of information out there on that point. And I think that your point here that you started about the curiosity and the commitment that people are bringing is one of the hallmarks of our student body. And that we need to be playing on that strength of our students, of the commitment.
Great. Thanks so much, Ben and Daniel, for those comments. Scott, were you going to say something? I see that you had unmuted yourself.
I did. They're cutting the grass outside my window.
Oh, that was the noise. Okay.
Which is why I put the mute back on. But I think
Okay.
they're far enough away now. So maybe just a few comments, more high level, and some closer to the ground.
Yeah.
So I taught in term 3. I was not only new to Future Generations, I was new to Chapel Hill. We had just moved back to the U.S. I was trying to get situated in my my day job at UNC. So I just had a lot going on. So perhaps my experience was somewhat unique to that degree. And so I think for me, there was the onboarding experience was challenging only to the degree that it was not only the curriculum and the material, but also learning the culture of Future Generations, learning how to use the technology, which is actually not that difficult, but at the same time, it presented a lot for me with sort of limited bandwidth time-wise. So I think I made a number of mistakes, I would say, in terms of the material, but I think that's part of the process. And so certainly if I am teaching this course in the future, there are going to be aspects of my curriculum that will need to iterate and innovate. A couple of my, I would say, challenges were around engagement. I like Luke's comments. My experience with the students was I had office hours one morning per week. And the first time I did that, I had 4 students on at the same time. And it was just impossible to engage them all, because the work I'm doing with the students is mainly the principal artifacts are the actual projects they are working on. And so it's the work I'm doing is fairly bespoke, I would say, to each student. So it wasn't effective to be trying to speak to 4 different students at the same time. So at that point, I changed it to sort of office hours any morning of the week, and I was willing to spend 30 minutes with any student at any time, just with 24 hours notice. And I don't think I had a single call after that. So there are actually there are students in my class with whom I never actually spoke during the term. I'm not sure it's anyone's fault, but I think that's something that I will need to work on in the future. Part of me took the position that if the students didn't need to speak with me, then I didn't want to compel them. But I think I would probably rethink that as well. So one thing I did, a couple things. I created a number of DIY home videos of me sort of talking head into the screen, because I wanted to contextualize a lot of the current thinking, best practices around the subject, and I hope that helped. I haven't gotten feedback about how the students, if they use the videos, if so, how effective they found them to be. I think for the new faculty members, one challenge is frankly just around English and written English. And I think this is something that we have talked about. The work that the students were turning in is, most of them, I think they're, in one sense they're quite, their command of English is quite good, but certainly in terms of sort of grammar and syntax and spelling, there were just a number of challenges. And I think for the first set of homework, I tried to correct every grammar error, and I realized that this was just this was never going to work, right? I was spending hours, just correcting grammar, and I think, and maybe Christy, you or Daniel can speak to this. I think, frankly, my bigger concern was not with students' grammar, but just about how our accrediting organization would view the fact that our master's level students really were their level of English was not what I would consider U.S. master's degree level English. So that was more that concern. The students were great. When you really sort of when you drilled down and found out what they were doing and why they were doing it, it was super impressive. There were some students who appeared to be lacking motivation. I think that's probably true in any classroom setting. And some of it may have indeed been lack of motivation. In some cases, there are cultural elements that look like, from an American point of view, that look like passivity, that are simply the way that culture operates. And in my course, I was, because we were talking about entrepreneurship and innovation, and I worked in an Asian context for 10 years, so I'm aware of some of these characteristics. But it does, there are aspects of self-agency and self-expression that are pretty important, that I sometimes struggle to draw out from the students. I think maybe an overall comment about what I've heard this morning that perhaps we can be thinking about is what I characterize as the difference between an airline and an airport. And in one sense, each one of our courses is like an airline. And, you know, I teach the innovation class, and this is where we're going. This is our destination. You know, if you get on the plane, this is where you go. And I think that's fine, but there's an airport function as well. And I think that involves, you know, central command there in West Virginia. And, you know, the function of an airport is to ensure safe takeoffs and landings for a number of airlines. And I think it would be, the thing I would appreciate is I think maybe Luke used the word integration or someone else, just to ensure that the material I'm teaching is really in sync with what other faculty members are offering, in sync, aligned, without being perhaps repetitious. And again, it may have been just sort of lack of time, but I wasn't really aware of what my colleagues were doing, either at the same time or had taught previously in terms 1 and 2. So that's one thing. Obviously, the faculty handbook and the curriculum are available, but it would be great to connect and perhaps in a more personal way and ensure that there is that sort of alignment across the curriculum. That may deal with some of the issues around work or too much of it thereof. Overall, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed the students. Would like to find ways to have better feedback with the students and maybe greater connectivity with you all at Central Command.
Great, thanks so much, Scott. I want to capitalize on some of those points, but Henry, you have, yes, please, Henry.
First, a couple of questions. One is, will we have access and be able to use Zoom, since I've never used it except as a recipient, so to speak? I mean,
yes, we have. If you want to use Zoom, we have several institutional subscriptions. You contact Paula, and she'll give you the information that you need to set up a meeting and to hold the meeting with the students. So definitely important. Yeah.
Following up on that, you know, teaching distance courses here at Hopkins, I'm listening to the comment that Scott made. We require sort of communication. We don't have videos, but we require what we call live talk sessions. I teach a course now every week. Students have to log in for a live talk session where we actually communicate with them. They ask questions. We talk about exercises or the labs or whatever. And these, of course, are recorded so that persons who can't tune in for some reason, you know, can pick up the recordings. But this is this is a scheduled interactive activity rather than sort of randomly expecting them to call in or this kind of thing. I don't know whether this is something that you've thought about in future generations. Second thing is that in terms of sort of balancing the work, each term, particularly for the Masters of Public Health students, particularly in the summer where a bunch of them are taking the same courses, we get together under the guidance of the program director to say, okay, when are your exams scheduled? What are your assignments and all that, to be sure that among the courses that are given, and it would be similar to this, that there's a balance both in terms of the, the requirements as well as the time schedule, so they don't all suddenly have on one particular day they're supposed to have 5 assignments in or something like that. Right. I don't know whether this kind of coordination just of the workload and the output is possible with future generations, but I know that this is, so these are just 2 comments. I just want to make a quick follow-up on the discussion about learning a language. Mm-hmm. And just to say that in my experience, the language is only an indicator of the fact that these persons are really out there living with the people. And because I work in many countries where people speak the language and they don't know anything at all about what's going on. And I give a personal example. I speak English, but I do not know anything about downtown Baltimore, really. Nor do I have any impact there. And the only way I would was if I went there and lived in the community and spent years, literally. So knowing the language is not enough. And the people who do have an impact don't necessarily have higher education. That really make impact in these kind of settings. Not that it's not in higher education, but I'm just reinforcing the fact that that's what really counts.
Could I address a couple of your questions, Henry, before I forget them? The question, the practical things that I think will help the instructors, that with regard to the Zoom session, we have tried required Zoom sessions, and we've found that because of student schedules, time zone issues, it was like some of the others have said, it was impossible to require everybody to be there at a Zoom session. But you can record it, like Lucas said, and then post it and require students to listen to it. So I think that if you want to record a lecture, that it's really effective to do that if not a real long one, maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and have them listen to it or use that as a place to explain concepts. But unfortunately, it's been tough having students all on at the same time. We've tried that in office hours.
Let me say it's not a lecture, it's a question and answer thing.
A question and answer, yeah.
This is really, do you not?
Yeah. And unfortunately, related to that is, and I think that a couple of Sani, Terry, all those who have taught during one of our residentials, that's such a powerful time because you're face to face with students and you have that discussion and interaction. And admittedly, we're losing something by not having all faculty come to a residential. We've had to do away with that, at least change it because of financial considerations, and we've offered elective courses. And so when you have 8 or so courses, you can't have all the faculty coming to a residential that's been shortened. And so we're losing some of that power of the face-to-face element and trying to somehow regain that through Zoom or through electronic means, which is hard, and we're in a learning curve with that. And so I know that that Terry and Sani were really disappointed not being able to, and others, to come to the Philippines because, Terry, you're so effective in Namibia and Sani and Rwanda. And so we're trying to figure out a way through simulation, through Zoom, through different online means to regain some of that, or through peer-to-peer. Erica's been helping with peer-to-peer aspects in teaching, trying to see how that can recover some of the lost impact of not having everyone come to residential. The other thing about workload, what we're trying to do is, that we're staggering the online sections of courses. So some of you have the online time in July and some in August, and so that's an effort to try to help students with time management. So at least with the online section of courses, most are responsible for only 2 plus the ongoing practicum at a time. Now then you get to September with the community lab, and that's when all of the courses fall. So hopefully this is also why we want faculty to have the courses up by Monday, so students can look at all their courses in advance, even the ones that start in August, and start to plan their time and manage their time. So they say, okay, I have these assignments due here, and hopefully there's enough flexibility so that they can say, okay, I'm going to do this here, and really plan out their time. And that's another challenge that we have, is helping them to be better time managers, because they go to the community, they go to the field, and they're out of internet reception for a while. So it's an effort to really help them to manage their time and manage their assignments over the course of the term. So we help them, but we also try to help them be their own self-regulators and their own managers. And it's tough, and that's a cultural kind of thing too. Some are used to just having the faculty, feed them the assignments, but they have to take initiative and be managers of their time. We're getting really close to 10. Dan, do you have, there's some questions or other?
Very quickly, I think. This is the eighth cohort that I've taught in. And so this last course was divided into two very clear sections, the online portion and the lab portion. In the online portion, following what Mike Recklin had done, I said every student that turns their assignment on within the time, they would get their feedback 2 days, and therefore I made time on that day that they were coming in, and I would say about 70 to 80% of the students got it in on time. That meant I got all the assignments. I was doing regrading the same assignment at the same time, and it's just so much more efficient than getting it in staggered. So the online portion was the best of my 8 cohorts. The lab section fell apart because even though the online section, another thing I mentioned, we introduced a lot of flexibility, because I put in this Sustainable Livelihoods course the material from 2 different courses, Sustainable Livelihoods and Conservation course and a Food and Water Security course. So students had online units. They could pick and choose which units they could take online, and that worked really well. They kept up. When I tried to introduce a lot of flexibility in the lab portion, they've got other labs that are happening at the same time. Almost nobody made the deadline, and so that feedback deadline just broke down completely. So I understand that in other courses they have had kind of contracts for the lab portion, where you say what it is you're going to do and what deadline you're going to make it by. And I think that would be how I would do it if I were to do it again, because I put deadlines for the lab portions and I staggered those, but immediately the students then asked for extensions, and that immediate feedback cycle fell apart there. So those are the recommendations I would say. I had the best and one of the worst experiences within the same course.
I would add my experience kind of mirrored yours, Dan, as well, from great online portion and a lot of problems with the labs when we had everything coming in together. Mike Recklin and I were very good at staggering the online section, not having assignments at the same time. And I would agree that also being very clear, both in a contract, making sure the students engage and understands what they need to do and when they need to do it by. And that, I would say, goes back to, I took a position like Scott of not insisting of having kind of any direct communication with the student aside from submissions. And I think that if I was to redo it, at the least I would want some email exchange dialogue in lieu of a direct video chat with each student.
So Terry, do you have questions? Sani, I know, Andrea, I see you're on the call now. Specific questions, I know, and Jesse, do you want to say something about Moodle? I know you had.
Just briefly, I've already worked with most of you, either in a group setting or individually on your Moodle sites. I think that the one-on-one meetings I've had have been really useful, and it seemed like an hour was enough to get up to speed. really, if people are still having trouble with Moodle, as you know, I pretty much tell everybody the best thing you can do is play around with it and first, search the site. And if you're still having trouble, then reach out. This actually will not be my job after another 10 days. So I assume Paula will be carrying this forward and perhaps somebody else. But that being said, I'm always available to give you a hand if you need it.
Okay. Yeah, Sonny, Terry?
No, I think I'm fine. Thank you, Jesse. I mean, you have been very helpful in terms of helping me with the Moodle site. I think I will just start and see how, I've taken a lot of advices in the way the course is designed, and then I will just learn by doing. I will see, and then probably, yeah, so thanks.
Yeah, I guess if I can just, the thing that I think that some of you know is I'm struggling right now with trying to, it feels like since I'm coming in the fourth quarter and I'm doing the policy, that what I'm doing would really fit nicely with so many other community labs they might have done, like to add a policy component. So I've been trying to figure out which of your courses looking at some of the, especially the sustainable livelihoods and CDNRM, and then maybe the seed scale, right? Like trying to figure out how to really integrate the policy into something they've already done, so I don't take them off into a new and overwhelming, project in their community lab. So if anyone has any, so one thing I'm thinking of is just giving them the choice. Like, I don't know all the projects they've done, but even one option in the community lab is just to say, take a project you've done before that you could add a policy component to. And I'm not sure if, that's kind of broad for them. So I don't know if you think that given the community labs they've done for you, that they could easily do that with, of course, with some guidelines on what that means to look at policy, but in a different context. But could they make that leap, or is that not going to work?
There, something to consider, and I'm trying to, Scott, if it was your course, chime in here. I know that at least one or two of us last term for our labs had it as an option as case studies. So for instance, in mine, they were doing a case study of growth where we often, and I know one other course had a case study option. And so that would be maybe something to explore, is at least my case studies were much more from what happened at the bottom up level. And if they wanted to kind of do an add-on or attack on to analyze the role of policy and the top down within that case framework to build it out. Now, you're going to have varying levels of success or comprehension of that, but it would be something to explore, and I'd be happy to chat with you about it.
Okay. Yeah, so I was thinking of having a range of things that were much more concrete, that if they didn't have anything that they could think of, they could just say, okay, I'm just going to do this. And then other options, which could be more like what you're talking about, where if they do have a lot of just self-initiative or interest, they could apply it to whatever existing work they wanted to. So good, thank you. That's a good thing to know about.
And then Dan, you might want to, I know Dan is available to interact with you on that course, and Mike Reckland probably also.
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say that have an option, a lab option like that. But some of the other students are going to want more of a checklist type of thing that they can, that it's with an example that they can kind of do something like that. Okay. There's a wide range within the class of that. But I would offer an option. That would have been the kind of option that would have interested me, was to take something I've already done and then add it. So I would look at offering that as one of the lab electives that you have, and we can learn from that as to how it works or not. But certainly not expect all students to jump at that opportunity.
Okay, sounds good. Good advice.
Yeah. Other comments or questions from anybody? Nawang? Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to share a few things with my experience with as a RED. I directly experience and work with students. So we have these three phases of the teaching: online, residential, and lab phase. So online is immediately they have write some artifacts, they read books. So that was actually they do immediately. And residential, we go to residential, and that immediately what they learn they can write easy. but they have the hard part is lab section community. So they understood is they have to go community, they have to analyze the community, they work with community, whatever they implemented. So that's a very practical, which is most important part, and which takes time. And Himalaya region might be, most of you know, Himalaya region, you have to work 2-3 days even you get your community. And at least 5-6 hours you have to work to get your groups, interaction and the group meetings, all these. So this is very difficult. That's the one reason they have behind the schedule, behind the due dates. And the second point I would like to share with you is, as we are, I'm right to which introduction with community. As Luke has everyone shared with Luke and myself and student, we Zoom meeting. So Luke explains that and he gives that, so to which I know what he's talking about. So Luke don't have every much time, but I'm immediately connected with my students here. So I can follow up that. So that is one good strategy, that whenever you have Zoom meeting, if you have, participate the rates also, then that will give help how to because one professor's assignments same for all students. So once red understood what professor is trying to saying and what they are saying or try to teach, if we know, then we can help them more than that. So we are immediately directly connected with the student. So that's one of my experience. The third experience is might be, I don't know, definitely individual professor has their own, teachings, all these. I cannot say anything for that, but just my personal opinion is that if we can give each course, if you give specific idea that student can learn and that practice in their community, then do we have 12 courses or 13 courses with 13 different ideas they learned from master program that will be perfected for the community, rather than we are try to teach hundreds of ideas, but end of course, then you are not getting anything, So that means what I mean is if you give specific assignments that they can learn, they can implement. And I think most of our students is development countries, come from Himalaya region, from the Himalaya region, and African regions also. So we are community-based, totally. So community, and our course is based on community-based, practice and community-based, courses. So which is we need to try to make applicable for the community. So that's my opinion. I don't know how is it possible for individual professors can teach all those, or no, that's a different thing. But this is my opinion. If one course, they can learn one specific thing and they can implement, which will be much benefit than learning try to whole 6 month course, 6 month period of course, and then end of course they have nothing learning. So.
Thank you, Nawang. You're right there on the front lines with the students. Anything else before? John, did you have something to say? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be quick.
No, that's fine.
Just, echoing, I had a lot of the same issues that Scott did in terms of, I tried to find a Zoom meeting time weekly that worked for everyone. That quickly proved impossible, and I went to the sort of, contact me and I'll meet with you anytime, and literally didn't have a single student the entire semester try to meet with me, despite multiple sort of reminders that was an option. So I'm not real sure what to do about that. I feel like the students managed without speaking to me, but would have done a lot better and gotten a lot more out of it had they done so. The other thing I really struggled with this semester was people not turning things in on time. It was just, some things were months late. I never once got assignments, even close to each other. So grading them at the same time or relative to each other to know what the sort of typical work that everyone was doing was not an option. So that made it a little difficult. I think that what happened was I was very lenient at the beginning, given that I was, it was my first time and I didn't know what life was like for the students and what internet was like. And how many other conflicts they had. So I wanted to be as lenient as possible and give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's possible that having done that the first assignment or two, I started getting taken advantage of for the remainder of the semester. So the one thing I think I would do differently with that respect is a very strict policy of, if you're not going to get something in on time, you submit. I would put together a form or something that basically says, request for extension with how long you're going to do it, an assurance that you're going to turn it in by then, and a quick reason, and make it as low impact as possible. That way, if they really are struggling with something else going on in their lives, this isn't a burden. But I think it would give me a much better idea of who was making an effort and was really just having conflicts versus who was slacking. So I think that might be helpful for those of you who have issues with students turning things in late.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I just want to make it clear to each of you now that are coming on and hearing the challenges that that are coming up to please, when these things come up, and I know John and Scott, you guys did this, so I appreciate it. Communicate with me when there are frustrations, and then I'll do everything that I can to also engage the regional academic directors, so Freyo, Luke, and Nawang, and also engage the students directly so that we can see if it's communication issues or what it is. So please, I don't want you to feel like you're out there alone wondering why students aren't communicating or turning things in and things like that. So you do have a support system. I'm here, Jesse's here, Jody's here, our RADs are here. So you have that, you have us to lean on, because we want you guys to be concerned about your material, your content, and engaging the students in the most effective way possible. Other issues we do need to close off, and yeah, Ben.
Christy, I want to just follow up your comment about support services. I would appreciate from the colleagues here, the faculty colleagues, criticism of the institution. We are making a huge effort within Future Generations to really improve our program. So one of the ways the faculty can really help is to be very frank and blunt in sending in what isn't working and criticisms. And this can be everything from the quality of the students who are admitted, to the way the program's done, to the administrative support, to the technical services. I'm asking for constructive criticism. Because Future Generations is going to be growing very fast over the next 3 years. Our student body is going to increase in size. And this will only work if we really improve the product. So I just want to say, please don't hold back and send in this, and then we'll wrestle with where answers might be.
Thank you, Daniel. Ben, you had some comments, yeah.
Yes, quick one. I just want to support Scott's earlier point about grammar, and I think it's an issue we need to address. Of course, part of that is their lack of familiarity with the language, which to me is understandable and forgivable. What I would like to suggest is, if we can encourage students from the beginning of the program to understand the difference between a main point and a support point, because part of their grammar problem, I think, is it's a reflection of lack of clarity of thinking. They mix up their arguments, and if they could just say, this is my main point, these are my support points, I think that would be a big improvement. And if they could always engage in self-examination of what they're saying, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Great point. Any other final points? And I will close by outlining the schedule as we're going forward for Term 4 faculty. So, and just for all of you, I'd like to, Scott had mentioned the Higher Learning Commission. We have our final meeting with the Higher Learning Commission in June, and so we're looking forward to being back in their full good graces. We're currently on notice, but we have a good review from them, and so we'll look forward to being off notice at the end of June.
I just want to throw out, I really like John's proposal of what to do when a student doesn't turn something in on time. And it kind of echoes, as Dan Robinson mentioned, this notion of a contract with a student. And just to get a sense of what is actually the holdup and that the student is still engaged in tracking what they need to do. You know, I see this from the other standpoint as a RAD. Our students are full-time employed. They usually have family, kids, community responsibilities, plus a full-time course load. Yeah, I'll be very blunt. I couldn't have done the academic course load last term, 5 courses plus a job, plus let alone a kid or something. But having a sense of what the holdup is, you're offline, you're out of communication, it would be nice to know, because sometimes we've got people just going MIA for far too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that we encourage, and this we'll get into just when I give you the dates, is that there is a time of withdrawal. I mean, okay, not withdrawal for like an addiction, but where students can drop a course. And so if they drop a course, it shows up as a W on their transcript, and that is much better than to get an F. If they get an F, that stays there forever, and it's reflected in their GPA. And we gave students in term 3 the opportunities for withdrawal. Some of them didn't take it, and they have an F in the course, and so that's how it goes. But that is an option for them to be able to recognize that they just have too much going on in their lives, too many courses, so they withdraw. They have to then later with another cohort, our next cohort, make up the course. You're not responsible to carry them through. You're done at the end of the term. So at that point, you know, they get a grade based on what they completed, or if they withdrew from the course, then they need to make those credits up later. So that's just how we handle that administratively. So just coming up again on this coming Monday, June 26th at 10 a.m., Paula, who is our admin assistant and works with the technology, will turn your courses on to students. So at that point, we'd like this courses to be complete on Moodle. If you still need to do final tweaking, like adding resources, maybe tweaking instructions, that's okay. But it needs to be there so they can see the syllabus, download the syllabus, and look at the course so they can start managing their time. So just to make that clear, June 26, 10 a.m., Moodle. Again, Jesse will be available, and I'll be available, Paula, to help setting those up. Next Wednesday at the same time, 9 a.m. is our Term 4 kickoff Zoom meeting, where we have hopefully all the students on, and they'll get to meet you. So I hope that you're able to join again 9 a.m. Next week on Wednesday, so you get to meet the students and see them. Usually they've made a really good effort to join these meetings, even if they don't come on subsequently to Zoom meetings. So it's a chance to see their faces. And July 3rd is when the term starts, so half of you will have your courses, your online section starting, then half in August. July 7th, the add period ends. The adding courses has to be really short, because you can imagine for an online course that has an online section in July, we can't let them adding a course 2 weeks later. So that's just about a 5. They'll have to catch up. If they add later, catch up 5 online days. That's more feasible than of course more. Then the drop period is at the end of the final online section, so August 31st. The August online course, the August courses, for those that have the online section in August, that starts July 31st. Any final questions? And of course, we're available individually to contact for either Zoom sessions or for just interacting via email. Anything else? Again, we're so appreciative of all of you for taking time out. I know a lot of this requires going beyond the call of duty. It's a lot of work. We hope that it will be, despite challenges and frustrations, we hope it will be rewarding. The students really, for the most part, the students have ended well term 3. So it's a difficult and challenging, but they have, for the most part, ended well, and they have they've learned a lot. And so we really appreciate that. Jesse, do you want to say something final about course evaluations for the term 3 faculties that are on here, or that process?
Sure, if you'd like. Yeah, I am currently analyzing all of the student survey data. I had to get out a rigor report to HLC, so I'm now finishing up aggregating the rest of the data, including student evaluations of faculty. So each faculty member from term 3 and subsequently in term 4 will basically get an email from me that has their feedback from students, both in terms of the fixed response questions and open response questions about what the students liked in their class and what could have been improved. So you can expect that from me by Friday.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. And that will be coming in term 4, of course, for the rest of you. So if there isn't anything else, I'll close the meeting. Again, thanks so much to each of you for joining, and for the term 4 faculty, I hope that you can join to meet the students next Wednesday. So,
thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
you all.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much.